So obviously, talking all about languages, you said you were pretty able to speak French, right? Yep. How did you get on with One Fine Morning? Do you need the subtitles?
Well, not for this one, but I do appreciate subtitles.
So we had a really lovely interview with Mia Hansen-Løve that Simon did last week, which really opened my eyes to all of the sort of nuanced moments of the film. So let's hear a clip in French of One Fine Morning, and then we'll get to hear what you think about the movie.
Sandra Kinsler?
Oui.
Vous êtes la fille de Georg Kinsler?
Oui, c'est moi.
Il m'avait dit que vous étiez traductrice, j'étais une de ses élèves.
Ah, d'accord.
Ouais, c'était un prof génial, ça m'arrive encore de relire ses cours.
Bah, je dirais, ça lui fera plaisir.
Est-ce que vous voulez bien me donner son mail? J'aimerais bien lui écrire.
Oui. Je vais vous donner le mien, parce qu'il a des difficultés pour lire. Il vaut mieux que vous m'écriviez et je lui lirai.
Et il va bien?
Il a des problèmes de santé.
Ah bon? J'espère que c'est pas trop grave.
C'est une maladie. Pardon. Au revoir.
So that was our central character, Sandra, getting quite emotional about having to relay the fact that her father is really quite ill. What did you think of this movie, Anna?
So I saw this movie for the first time in Cannes at its premiere at the Cannes Film Festival last year, and I gave it a 5-star review then.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, spoiler alert, going to do that again now because I revisited the film to refamiliarize myself with it. And there is something so unique about Mia Hansen-Løve's filmmaking where it is usually quite simple narratives, really simple stories about big emotions, but they never feel slight and they never feel small, because in the case of Sandra in One Fine Morning, she's a translator. She's played by Leah Seydoux, sporting, just as an aside, a very, very beautiful Jean Seberg-esque pixie cut. And she's in the middle of two really intense emotional journeys. On the one hand, her father, who is an academic, who has dedicated his entire life to learning to books, is slowly dying through a degenerative disease. So she has to be his carer, but also really wrestle with the idea of his upcoming death and the slow loss of his faculties. And, the clip that we just played, it's her also having to deal with the logistics of, for instance, dismantling his vast library, of, sharing that with his former students, with people who knew him, people who don't know him that well, and the devastation of essentially taking apart someone's life's work and life's interest into just mere books and objects. And on the other hand, the big thing that's happening with Sandra is that she starts an affair. She is a single mother to a small child, and she runs into this friend, Clément, who's played by Melville Pouponne, who is an amazing, I'm not sure if this is a made-up movie job, is an astrochemist or cosmochemist. So he does something to do with space. It sounds hot, and it involves a lot of travel.
And a chemise.
Yeah. And they start rekindling their friendship. There's obviously incredible chemistry between them, and that develops into an affair. But Clément has a partner who he's been with for 10 years. He's got a child. So eventually, Sandra becomes the mistress. But their romance is filmed and plays out like a romance, but it is entirely done from her point of view, from the point of view of a mistress who does not fit into the bill of any mistresses that we've seen kind of so far, as you would expect from Mia Hansen-Løve's film. She doesn't really do anything in the way that it's been done before.
Yes.
She's very concerned with the interior life of her characters, especially with the interior life of women. And it is really a beautiful film that is about care, because Sandra is she's a carer. She's a person who is caring for her child, caring for her father, caring for everyone around her, and has essentially forgotten about herself and put herself on ice. And this affair, ill-advised as it is, the film doesn't really pass any moral judgments. It's not interested in that. It's interested in her awakening herself to herself. On the one hand, it's this physical reawakening through the sexual relationship she has with Clément. And then it's the emotional one of her falling in love and demanding that it is a real relationship, not this, I get you for 2 hours while your wife is away doing something. And, this infatuation that she has makes sense because she doesn't need to care for Clement. She's not performing that role for him. So their fleeting time together becomes the only moment where she is getting into herself. So it's, for Léa Seydoux, who's a wonderful performer and sometimes does, in the English language at least, roles that are a little bit more to do with how she looks and are a bit more of the arm candy Bond girl variety, right? Here she is a woman who is torn between all these different roles. She's a daughter, she's a carer, she's a mother, she's a lover. And which one or which intersection is the one where she exists? It's wonderful, and it's just like a beautiful film to watch as well. It feels like a balm. It's shot in a beautiful sunny Paris. Everything is effortlessly gorgeous, and
it's realistic. It feels like a realistic interpretation still of Paris, but also of, as you say, of caring, because, the depictions of parents kind of growing old and that role reversal of having to care for your parents on such a level where she's kind of embarrassed to take her father to the toilet, but he cannot go herself. But it's that very sort of I feel quite British, but clearly quite French thing of like almost repression, where a nurse sort of like scolds her for not being able to take her father to the toilet because of embarrassment. And she sort of says, you should be grateful for every kind of moment that you have with them. But I can imagine that would be incredibly hard for somebody who has gone through that in their real lives with their own parents to watch, but also possibly and hopefully quite cathartic.
Yes, and also interestingly, I didn't actually know this, but it's loosely inspired, as many of her films are, by Mia Hansen-Løve's own experience with her ailing father. And, the seed of the story, I'm not calling this autobiographical in any way. And I think all her films are personal, not necessarily autobiographical. And there's a difference. But she, at the time where she was caring for her ailing father, she was also falling in love with a new partner. So the weird dissonance between an extremely buoyant, joyous experience that is falling in love happening at the same time as something, like you said, really jarring, really deeply sad and difficult to grapple with, which is the role reversal of carer for a person, a parent who you've loved and who's taking care of you for your entire life, now kind of being reduced to someone who can't take care of themselves. It's really devastating.
It is. Yeah. It's also a very sexy film as well, we should say. Yes. I mean, God, the kissing, the snogging in this film is some of the best snogging that I've seen on screen in a very long time.
Absolutely. Also, as an aside, I would love someone to email in about the word snog, because it's not something I heard ever until I moved to London.
Oh, really?
But that first kiss between Sandra and Clement, oh my Lord.
I was kind of clutching the sofa. I was like, this is what sex should look like on screen.
It's chemistry.
It is pure and utter chemistry. And we'll get into what happens when there is no chemistry perhaps later on. We've got an email from a listener, Lucy, who has said, I'm sure I was not the only listener holding my breath during the powerful conversation Simon had with Mia Hansen-Løve on the subject, later explored between you both, of care homes and the physical impact they can have on their residents. Mia's description of her father being hunched over was exquisitely, if painfully, observed. While truthfully, I'm looking forward to seeing One Fine Morning when it's released next week, I suspect kind souls will be staring at me on the tube as I travel home afterwards and plying me with tissues. Note to self, take tissues. So I thought you'd like to know about some uplifting research which has long fascinated me as a psychotherapist. This research was conducted by a well-known global beauty brand who took their beauticians into care homes in France, offering free makeup and hair sessions to the residents. What the research showed was that after such interactions, care home residents suffered fewer falls and broken bones. Whether it was the well-being impact of having someone engage tenderly one-on-one with residents, or the mood uplift that comes from feeling better about ourselves through beautification, the research shows quite simply that the care home residents stood more upright, walked with more stability, and greeted each day with greater confidence, and that this resulted in fewer falls. I'm now off to stock up on tissues. Very best wishes, Lucy. Lucy, thank you so much. What
It's a wonderful email.
really lovely email, and also just a really hopeful one. I think there is hope in this film. It is not all doom and gloom, absolutely not. It is very uplifting and joyful in parts, if not just seeing the love that Sandra has for her father. But how lovely to have an optimistic take on this as well.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's Take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.